please
So
go ahead.
we have with us Professor A.K. Srivastava, the former director and vice chancellor, National Dairy Research Institute, Karnal. Then he has graduated and post-graduated in veterinary sciences from Veterinary College of Mathura. Then he obtained his PhD from PAU Ludhiana, postdoctorate fellowship from Institute of Toxicology in Germany. And then in Germany, he has been decorated with numerous prestigious awards and honors, including ICAR Jawaharlal Nehru Award, the National Larsen Award, Rashtriya Vidya Saravasti Puraskar, Indira Gandhi Excellence Award, many other awards. Professor Srivastava is president of a National Academy of Dairy Sciences, is president of National Academy of Dairy Sciences, president of Indian Society of Veterinary Pharmacology and Toxicology, is also president of Probiotic Association of India, governing body member of Punjab Livestock Development Board and Rajasthan Livestock Mission, and member governing body of National Institute of Animal Biotechnology, DBT, Government of India. So this a brief, we have a big list of other achievements of Professor A.K. Srivastava, who is presently the member of SRB. Then over to Professor Srivastava, please. You can share your screen, sir.
Okay, Zaur. Give me a few minutes, just 1 minute. Let me share. Let me fix my presentation.
Yes, it's there, sir.
Okay, well, now this slide is visible.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Okay, well, friends, it is 25 minutes past 3, and thank you, Madam Sheila Dev and Dr. Zahur Pampori for providing this opportunity to have interaction with you for this topic that is very important topic, the bumpy journey of food and nutritional security. A good presentation was given by earlier speaker. I will give here some very alarming and good data which will assist us, which will help us while formulating our future policies. That's why I have said it is a bumpy journey of food and nutrition security. Just okay. Well, friends, if we see that Indian food and agriculture sector in globally, then certainly this sector is the real era of science and technology and innovation. The reason is that this country, it traveled a long distance from food deficient and food import. In 1947, we were food deficient and we were importing the food. And now since 1980, now this country is food self-sufficient and we are exporting the food. And this has been achieved because we changed our conventional farming to technology-led agriculture. So now we are practicing the technology-led agriculture. From food sufficiency, from food import to food export, we obtained because we brought all green revolution. That is the green revolution, white revolution, blue revolution, and yellow revolution. And all revolution came, you know, means this green revolution model is being used in different African countries, but is not succeeding. Reason is that in India, we start bringing green revolution, all 6 pillars work together. That is the technology, service, farmer enthusiasts, political will, innovation, public policies, all they were working together. And out of this, assured and remunerative price to farmer as MSP, minimum support price. You will be surprised to know this one, the sentence which I have written in the red box, that Indian farmers achieved as much progress in wheat production in 4 years, that is in 64 to 68, as during the preceding 4,000 years. So this was the real impact of green revolution, which brought the food security in this country. That it was not, green revolution was really wheat revolution, because we produced the wheat in 4 years, which we could not produce in the preceding 4,000 years. So this was the impact of green revolution. And this year, India continued to feed for the 5 decades 1960, it was out. We were producing only 65 million ton of the food, and in 2019 and 20, if we see, we are producing more than 290 million ton of the food. And in 2000, we brought the will to food with homegrown food grains. So these are all success story. In mid 60s, what was the situation, and today what is the situation? If you see that really glory food production system to bring the food security and nutrition security in this country. There are some glorious data, there are some black side that we will discuss today, which will help us in preparing our future policy. We see the food production system as today, what they are. India is having more than 17% of the world human population and 12% of the total population. India is the only country in 17% of the world population, with only 2.3% of the global land and 4.2%. We became in 1947. At that time also we were having 142 million hectare cultivable land, and today also we are having the same land, 100 minus 2 million cultivable land, and at 16 rest is rain fed for food. We are having 137% cropping intensity. Water we're seeing 32%. 2% of the population.
Yes, sir.
Just, yeah, I'm sharing the slides.
Sure, sure, no issues, no issue.
Okay, now it is visible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, yes. Sure.
I'm audible. Okay.
Yes, yes, sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay, friends. Sometimes this technology become a hurdles when it is not in your hands. Means you can't control them. Okay. Again, we start. Just this is the real present scenario of Indian food production system, which is very laudable and which brought the food security in this country. As I said, that very glorious data on food production. We started with 208 million ton in 2005 and 6 total total food grain production, and now it is around 292 million ton of the food grains we are producing. So this is the successful journey of Indian agriculture production system, that from 2005 and 6 in 15 years it has reached from 208.6 million ton to 292 million ton of the food grain. Similar picture, if we see the pulses, yes, friends, there has been increase of 212.7% in pulse production from 2050-51. Means when we brought green revolution, so this green revolution pushed the pulse cultivation from irrigated to rain-fed area. That is the drawback, that during green revolution pulses did not get attention because it has been pushed in rain-fed area. And today about 87% of the total pulses is coming from the rain-fed region. In India, if you see, although we produced 26 million ton of the pulses in 2019 and 20, but in India the per capita pulse consumption is much less. That is around 10 to 12 kg per year per person, which is recommended to be 19 to 23 kg per person per year. So still we have to travel a long journey as far as pulse production is concerned in this country. Coming to the horticultural crops, food and nutritional security, when we talk, we always say that our food grains can give the food security, but for nutritional security, we have to rely more on horticulture and on livestock sector and fishery sectors. But this is the data on horticultural produce. There has been an increase of 224.7% in the last 30 years, and this year we produced around 310 million ton of the horticultural crops, that is the fruits and vegetables. Similar picture we will get on the fish production. In 2007 and 8, just 12 years before, it was 7.13 million ton, and in 2018 and 19 there has been 13 million ton of the fish production. Very high growth rate in fish production we obtained in the last 2 decades. So that is also a good point in bringing the nutritional security. Similar picture we get in meat production, friends. India is the 3rd largest exporter of the meat after Brazil and Australia. Then we are the largest exporter of the buffalo meat. India is the largest exporter of the buffalo meat. And in India, if you see, UP is at number 1 in buffalo meat export. We produced this year 8.1 million ton of the meat. And in 2001 and it was only 1.9 million ton. So there has been 326% increase in meat production from 2001 to 2. But majority of this meat, out of 8.1 million ton, 4.27 million ton is the broiler meat. So this was the story of the fish production, meat production, horticultural produce, pulses, and crop production. Egg production, another success story. If we see another success story, 2 decades before, in 2000 and 2001, the total egg production was only 39 billion. This data is given in billion. It was only 39 billion. And this year in 2018 and 19, the total egg production was 103.3 billion. That is the glorious record in production of the egg. And there has been increase of 164% egg production in the last 2 decades. In 2000, we had seen that in 1980 and 80, the egg production was only 10 billion. And today we are producing more than 100 billion. We are at 3rd number in the world in egg production, but still per capita availability is 79x per year, which is much lower than Medical Council of India recommendation. But last one thing is, you see the data of milk. India is at #1 in the world in milk production for the last 2 decades. India is producing around 21% of the world milk. The recommended per capita milk in India as per ICMR is 280 gram per person per day. We should consume milk 280 gram per day. But the availability of per capita milk in India is 394 gram per day per person on one hand. On other hand, the per capita milk availability world average is very lower. It is 220 gram per day per person. The dairy sector grew this year to the tune of 6.5%. Niti Aayog says that by 2030-34, India will be producing 330 million ton. Here I would like to emphasize that if we really want to bring the nutritional security along with the zero hunger target, then this is the livestock sector and fishery sector which must be emphasized, which must be given, means policy-wise, research-wise, incentive-wise to the farmers. All support should be given so that nutritional security should also come along with food security. At present, India is surplus in food production. There is no problem of food security. There is no shortage of the food in India. There is no scarcity. If there is some problem somewhere, it is not because production is less. It is not because science is less, but there is a issue in the distribution policies, distribution pattern. To bring the nutritional security, livestock sector, fishery sector, and horticultural sector should be given more emphasis. So this has been the glorious journey of Indian milk production system, Indian dairy sector, which is most important for nutritional security. India contributes about 50% of the global growth in milk in the world. In the last 5 decades, we have achieved the 8-fold growth in milk production. India had more milk in global pool than entire Europe, entire European countries. If we see the scenario of 1970s, in early 70s, India milk production was 1/3 of the US and 1/8 of the European country. Today, we are producing twice of the US and 25% more than EU. In 2019 and 20, India produced the milk worth 8 lakhs crore, which was only 6.6 lakh crores in 2018 and 19. These are the glorious data on milk production of the dairy sector. Last line, friends, very carefully, please read it. It is said that the value of only milk in India in terms of rupees is more than the total values of all grains and pulses put together. This is the data of Government of India. When Madam was delivering the lecture, somebody asked about the fishery sector. That's why we don't emphasize more on the fishery sector. Absolutely correct. This is, now you can see that the value which we get only from milk, forget about meat, fish, egg, it is more than the total value of grains, all grains and pulses in 2019 and 20 on one hand. On other hand, we spent only 1% of agricultural GDP on livestock sector. Our investment is very poor on the livestock sector. If we see the glorious journey of dairy sector, today white revolution contribution surpasses the green revolution. That was the time when green revolution was stopped. Now white revolution has surpasses. Every 5th rupees which is being generated from food production system, from farm sector, comes from the milk. I will tell you that when we brought green revolution, in the same time, white revolution also came, but it was less talked, it was less glamorized, it was less spoken. When we started green revolution, at that time, rice production was 39 million ton, and today we are producing around 100 million ton of the rice because of green revolution. But very few people know that at the same corresponding time, the milk production was only 17 million ton, not even half of the rice. And today we are producing 180 million ton of the milk, approximately double of the rice milk. So white revolution came along with green revolution, but it was less talked, less glamorized. But now time has come that to bring the nutritional security, food security, livestock sector has to emphasize. And now Government of India has identified that dairy and animal husbandry sector is a main sector which can provide the livelihood. Because I have calculated that if there is a collection of 1 lakh liter of milk per day from producer and supplied to the consumers, then it will give employment to about 6,000 households. Out of that, 5,000 farmers who are delivering the milk and 1,000 who are engaged in the processing, transporting, and distributing. You will be surprised to know that during this year, during lockdown, unlike most items, the producer and consumers price of the milk remain constant. And this is despite that there has been a significant fall in the demand during lockdown due to pandemic of the COVID. So why I'm emphasizing that, friends, if we talk about the nutritional security, then it is the livestock sector which is going to save us. Another important point, there has been stability in the livestock sector for food and nutritional security. There has been the constant and sustainable growth despite limited investment either from public sector or from private sector. Mega biodiversity and largest livestock population. India is the only country which is having 45 recognized breed of cattle, 15 to 16 recognized breed of the buffalo. Largest livestock population, more than 200 million of cattle and 110 million of the buffalo. Highest milk production with high growth rate, 6.5% growth rate, 180 million ton of the milk. Still low production cost. Murrah breed is the best breed of the buffalo, or India is the holder of this germplasm. When I was director NDRI, at that time 120 countries were demanding the germplasm of the Murrah buffalo. Still in dairy sector, we are following all 3 production systems: zero input, low output, low input, moderate output, intensive input, and high output. When we say that, yes, dairy sector is a backbone for nutritional security for the country, people say that you might be having the largest livestock population, especially when you speak to the international forum, and that's why India is at #1 in the milk production. Friends, but it is not true. In this slide, I am saying that this is the real picture. The first census of Government of India and last census of Government of India. In first census, cattle population was 155.3 million and now it is 192.49 million. So there has been increase in 24% in cattle population in the last 7 decades. Similarly, buffalo population, it was 43.4 million and it has reached to 109.85 million. So there has been 153% increase in buffalo population. So 23% increase in cattle, 153% increase in buffalo led the enhancement of the milk to the tune of 1,105%. That is from 17 million ton to 188 million ton. It cannot be number-driven enhancement in milk production. It is the technology-driven enhancement in milk production. What I want to emphasize that livestock sector has contributed more in this country for nutritional and food security than any other sector. This is the technology-led enhancement in milk production, not number-led enhancement in milk production. And that is visible from this data also. This is the percentage of contribution of agriculture and livestock in total gross value added, this is economic term, but you consider as a GDP. GBA or GDP or GVA at constant price of 2011 and 12, if you see, agriculture contribution in total GDP of the nation, it was 12.1% in 2011 and 12, then 11.5% in 12 and 13, and 2015 and 16, 9.3, and again it has further reduced. But however, if you see the contribution of livestock sector in national GDP or national GBA, it has been the constant from 2011-12 to 2018 and 19, that is the 4%. And the contribution of livestock in agricultural GDP or in agriculture GDPA is increasing year by year. It was 21.8 And in 2015 and 16, it is 25.7%. And in 2018 and 19, it is 31.6% of the total agricultural GDP. So livestock sector is growing faster than any other agricultural sector, and it is the future for food and nutritional security. And by 2022, it has been predicted by NITI Aayog that this subsector will produce more than half of the agricultural output. So this is the backbone of nutritional security. This was, friends, our glorious journey for food security, the data on the food production system. By 2030, we will be requiring, this is the demand, projected demand. By 2030, we will be requiring 311 million ton of the food grade, 21 million ton of the edible oil, 39 million ton of the sugar, 192 million of the vegetables, 103 million of the fruits, 185 million ton of the milk, and if we talk about the meat, eggs, and fish, to the tune of 26 million ton. And now you can imagine that by 2030, our requirement will be of 185 million ton of the milk, and this year itself, we produced 180 million ton of the milk we had produced. Another plus point with Indian food production system is that India is having 17% of the animal, 12% of the plants, and 10% of the fish genetic resources of the globe. So mega genetic resources of food production system, either it is an animal, or it is a plant, or it is a fish. We are having largest genetic resources for food production. So it is a best tool to bring food and nutritional security. Second point says that 52% of our total land is arable. It is fit for agriculture against 11% of the world average. So we are having 52% of our total land fit for agriculture. India is having all 15 major climate of the world. It has 20 agroclimatic zone. Out of 60 soil types, we are having 46 soil types. So again, all plus point. Longer sunshine hours and day length, it's best suited for round the year cultivation. You know that many countries are able to grow only one crop, but here we are able to grow round the year crop cultivation for food and nutritional security. So these were plus point, these were our glorious data, these were our strength in the agricultural food production system for food security. Now coming to the friends, challenges. What challenges we see in the future? What are the weaknesses? What are the feasibility point in Indian food production system which can bring the food security? This is the major challenge in food production system. Our biggest challenge is to provide the food and nutrition to 1.4 billion population by 2022 and 1.6 billion population by 2050. You know that by 2033, India will be the most populous country in the world, leaving China behind. We will be the most populous country by 2030-31. Second challenge is that more than 80% farmers are marginal. They are having only 1 hectare land, are small, having 1 to 2 hectare land. This is the bigger challenge. So which type of food production system we should follow, that we will see. Out of these marginal farmers, 40% are most vulnerable, marginalized for food security, and they are insecure in terms of the food. The farms are diverse and unorganized. About 57 to 60% net cultivated area is rain-fed. If there is a rain, then there will be food production system. And we all know that water table is depleting year by year. By 2025, when we will be requiring 12% more water for this production system, water table will be reduced to the tune of 20%. We are having soil health is very poor, either in terms of microbes or in terms of micronutrients. It is very poor. Soil health is deteriorating year by year. On one hand, when we are adding only 17 million ton of the micronutrients in agriculture production system, we are depleting 30 million ton every year. Input use efficiency is decreasing. Either it is a fertilizer or it is a pesticides, it is decreasing. At present, our input use efficiency of fertilizer and pesticide is not more than 30 to 35%. Increasing pests, insects are newer threats. So these are the bigger threats which we have to address to bring the food security. This is the picture when I say that farmers are marginal, farmers are small, they are having less land. So this is the real picture. 70% farmers are marginal. When I say marginal means they are having less than 1 hectare of the land. 17% are small, green one are small, between 1 to 2. 9% are large, more than 5 to 7 hectare land. Only 4% are large. So now you can see that 70% farmers are small, 17% are marginal and small. So it is 87% farmers are having less than 2 hectare of the land. We have to rethink, friends, that which type of agriculture we are requiring at this moment. When 87% of the farmers are having less than 2 hectare of the land. Can this traditional way of farming should continue, or should we go for corporate type of system, or means different system, hiring of the equipments for the farming? So all this system we have to address to bring production of the food grains. Grass irrigated area, if we see that what are the area under grass irrigated, yes, it is a Punjab which is having around 98-99% of the total irrigated area, followed by Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, all these things. But if you see the average of India irrigated land, it is 48.6%. So less than 50% of our land area is irrigated. 52%, means they are dependent on the rain. If there is a rain, there will be food production. I think this is the one area where government of India has to give more thrust. We did not spend much money on this issue, bringing more and more land under irrigation. This is one challenge. Another challenge, friends, that is the most important, friends. Present our challenge is to produce more from less, far more. Produce more from less, far more. This is the real picture that in 1971, per capita land availability in India was 2.41 hectare, which has reduced to 1.89 in 1981. In 1991, it is 1.61. Then in 2011, it is 1.18. In 2050, it has been calculated that in India, the per capita land availability would be 0.09 hectare. Which type of crop, which type of animal, which type of fish we want to produce from 0.09 hectare of the land for feeding one person in country to bring food and nutritional security. And after 2050, we do not know that what would be the per capita land availability. Biggest challenge, that per capita land availability is decreasing year by year. On one hand, we are losing the land for infrastructure development, but that is not the issue, because on the other hand, we are also reclaiming the land and making it fit for the agriculture, which was not fit for agriculture earlier. Now, coming to the production system, coming to the climate change. Reduction in food production system, in food production, because of climate change, has been projected maximum for India. If you see the India, there was projection that in India, the food production will reduce to the tune of 25% by 2050. Followed by in Australia to the tune of 17%. Then Brazil, China, EU, USA, and Canada. So this is the impact of climate change. If it really, goes in the direction as projected, it will be real catastrophe, because it projects that 25% reduction in food production by 2050 if climate changes as it is projected. Second challenge to bring the food and nutritional security is that our consumption pattern is changing. This data I have compiled to show that how the consumption pattern is changing. The percentage of the total food expenditure. If I am spending 100 rupees means, then in 1993-94, I was spending 44.8 rupees on food grains. But in 2004 and 5, it has reduced to 38.7. And in 2015 and 16, it has reduced to 31.7. On the other hand, if we see the expenditure on dairy products, on meat, egg, fish, fruits, vegetables, it is increasing. Fruits, vegetable almost constant for the 10 years. But you see the dairy products and egg, fish, and meat. Now people are spending more money on milk and milk products, on fish, egg, meat, and vegetables and fruits than on cereals. So this is the new pattern coming in the society. That is the changes in consumption pattern. We are spending more money on meat, milk, eggs, fish, fruits, vegetable. So accordingly, we have to change our food production system also in this direction. Another challenge, friends, food cold storage facilities. Indian cold storage market is growing, no doubt, to the tune of 20% annual rate, and it has, as compared to 2011 and 12. There are 3,500 companies engaged in the cold chain network in India. But the facility which have, out of all facilities of the cold storage, 65% is only in 2 states, that is Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal. And in these 2 states, more than 75% is being used for storage of only potato. So this is a means bad situation, that India requires more cold storage, which is not available. 65% is only 2 states what facility we have, and in these 2 states, 75% cold storage facility is being used for the potato. 104 million ton of the perishable commodities are transported annually from one place to another place, and out of this, only 4 million ton moves refrigerated. So this is the bigger challenge. Can we provide the storage and transport facility in cold condition of total 104 million ton of the perishable commodities? And what 4 million ton is moving from one place to another place, 80% is milk and milk products. So think about the meat, fish, eggs, and not that horticulture, and not that livestock. Think about the horticulture. If we can store our each and every gram of the horticultural produce, if we can save, I think it will be a big boost for food and nutritional security. That is the biggest challenge, to provide cold storage facility of our all food produced. Food processing sector in India, no doubt it is growing again to the tune of 13.7% and 10.8% in the organized sector. Cold storage requirement is for 68 million ton for us, and the facility which we have at present is only for 32 million ton. So half of the facility is available. Workforce engaged in registered and unregistered food processing sector are very high, 17 to 47 lakhs respectively. Why I'm emphasizing that when we think to bring the livelihood, security, employment, then this is the one sector which can bring. Now you can see that if we can provide the cold storage facility for 62 million ton of the food, the people engaged in the cold storage work, they will jump to the 34 in the organized and to the 47 to 100 in the unorganized sector. No doubt government is promoting to establish the specialized agro-processing sector, and if you see the allocation of 2018 and 19 and 19 and 20 also, the MOFPI has doubled its allocation for the cold storage facility. So all these things are bigger challenge. This is the most means bothering post-harvest loss which we are losing after production. It is estimated to be more than 92,651 crore rupees annually. Now you can imagine that after harvest of the food, we are losing to the tune of 92,651 crore rupees. This table is the research of our Indian Council of Agriculture Research. It is a very conservative data that how much we are losing. Fruits and vegetable 4.6 to 15.9%. I give a statement that the fruits and vegetables which we are losing after harvest is equal to the consumption of major cities of whole Europe. So now you can imagine the fruits and vegetables which we lose, if we can conserve, we can feed whole Europe. The least post-harvest loss is in milk. That is only 0.92%. And we all know that it is only because of the milk cooperatives and because of the farmers' involvement. They are converting milk to curd, curd to butter, and the ghee is stored at household. So this is the conservative estimate of post-harvest loss. This is very huge. 92,651 rupees we are losing every year after harvest. Friends, despite this all glorious data on the food production system in India and at world level, I'm sure that Madam Dev has also given must have given all these information, but this is alarming. In world, there is hidden hunger. There is malnutrition. We are targeting zero hunger, but there is hidden hunger, there is malnutrition. Globally, I'm talking globally, micronutrient deficiency is significant, especially vitamin A, iodine, iron, zinc is most important. Means I give you one story that along with science, we should also reach to the consumers. Iodized salt, I give one example in India. We all know that 30 years before, 40 years before, there was iodine deficiency in the population and people were suffering with the goiter, means the goiter iodine deficiency. We did a good research. We iodized the salt and Tata salt, it means they are not earning much money on this iodization. They did a good job. Iodized salt in the market. Our science, our, means marketing was very good. We brought the iodized salt in market to the consumers. But we never taught the consumers that what is the best way to consume the iodized salt. When you put iodized salt in your dal and sabji and you boil it, within 5 minutes, iodine gets oxidized and it gets evaporated. We never taught that iodized salt was never made as a cooking salt. It was a dining table salt. We should eat a raw salt. Or if we are putting in dal and sabji, then kindly cover it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, so that iodine is not evaporated. So what I'm emphasizing, friends, that there is hidden hunger, there is malnutrition. To address this, along with science, we have to also reach to the consumers the best way. What is the best way to consume this thing? We have also seen that, means if you cut your vegetables and all things in small pieces, and if you go for washing, after cutting the vegetables, your all water soluble vitamins, minerals will be, means it will be going to the tunnel. It will not be in your food. So all this way, globally, if you see, 2 billion people are reported to be having deficiency of one or more micronutrient globally. In world, about 12% of the population, that is the 842 million, that is the 1 in 8, are suffering with chronic hunger. By 2050, global population will be more than 7 billion. It will jump from 7 billion to 9.6 billion, and to food this population, to bring the zero hunger, we have to increase our food production to the tune of 70%. Globally, I am talking. Progress has been made, no doubt. Progress has been made in reducing the child stunting. However, in world, about 22% are still stunted. Over 38 million children under 5 years are overweight. No doubt, stunting is declining, but it is too slow, while overweight is increasing at very fast. In Africa, data we have seen that the number of overweight children under 5 has increased by nearly 50%. Madam Dev was talking about the anemia. It is a bigger challenge. Anemia in women and obesity in adults are increasing. More than 1 in 8 adults in the world are obese, and more than 1 in I will see that and more than 1 in 3 women in reproductive age is anemic. Globally, I'm talking. So this is the problem of nutritional security. In India, situation is further alarming. 1/4 of world hungry and poor have their home in India, friends. So we have bigger challenge on our shoulder. 1/4 of the hungry and poor people, they are having home in India. More than 70% Indians consume less than 50% of recommended daily allowances RDA of micronutrients. Maybe you, maybe me. Means we all are consuming less micronutrients than what is recommended. So 70% Indian are consuming less than 50% of RDA of the micronutrient. This is data. 60,000 children die only because of malnutrition or lack of the micronutrients in India. 80% women of reproductive age are suffering with only one disease, that is the anemia. 57% women and children are suffering with vitamin A deficiency. 1/3 of girls in India aged between 15 to 17 are stunted. Report of India Spend, you know that India Spend is a very respectable magazine. Report of India Spend in May 2017 says that only 1 child among 10 child gets adequate nutrition. Friends, these are the very alarming statement which I am saying, that only 1 child out of 10 gets the adequate nutrition. Iodine deficiency, as I said, it continues to be a public health problem. Although there is not a bigger problem in pan-India, but in seashore region, still it is a problem. So the iodine deficiency is still a problem. I told you that we developed a good technology for fortification of the iron. We produced the fortified iodine fortified salt, but we did not communicate to the consumers that what is the best way to consume the fortified salt, and we took 40 years to eradicate the iodine deficiency. If we see the number of undernourished population in million, if you talk about in India, there has been reduction to the tune of 22.8% if we compare the 10 years data of 2004 to 2015 and 16. China, 39% reduction. Pakistan, 10% has increased. Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Nepal, three countries, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, there has been increase in undernourishment. However, in Nepal, Sri Lanka, India, and China, there has been decrease in the undernourishment in the last 10 years. Undernourishment in total population, India versus neighboring country, if you see, friends, 18.9% of the total population of India is undernourished. 18.9%. 25%, 25.4% in Pakistan, 21.9% in Sudan, and 20.4% in Sri Lanka is higher. Otherwise, Egypt, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Ghana, even Ghana, you can see, means they are having less undernourishment population. Malnutrition in children under 5 years, India versus neighboring country, very alarming. 43% of our children in India are malnourished. Even Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and China, forget about Thailand and China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, they are also having better picture than India. We have to address this issue, friends, under 5-year children, how to bring good health, good nutrition to the children under 5 years. I will talk later on that what policies, what scientific issues we should take. Then underweight children. India versus neighboring countries, underweight children below 5 years, 44.2% children in India below 5 years of the age are underweight. Pakistan, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, Sri Lanka having better condition, better situation, better data than India. So 44.2% of our children are underweight below 5 years. Death rate for children under 5 years, India versus neighboring countries. Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Myanmar, they are having a higher death rate under 5 years. This data I'm saying that children died per 1,000 children. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Myanmar, 3 countries, means there is more mortality in the children under 5 years, but it is not because of malnutrition. There are some other problems, some political, some other problem. All these things. Pakistan is facing, Afghanistan is facing. But if you see a peaceful country, 61 children per 1,000 children dying before 5 years, it is a really catastrophe. So 61 children die under 5 years in India out of 1,000 children. Malnutrition, stunting, and wasting in children in the Indian subcontinent. I heard that Madam Dev was also talking about the this stunting and all these things. For example, if you see India situation, I'm more concerned. 38.7% children are stunted. 15.1% children are wasted. Wasting prevalence in children under 5 years is 15.1%. Stunting prevalence in children under 5 years is 38.7%. Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bangladesh, we have no, not concerned. We are more concerned about India that 38.7% children are stunted and 15.1% children below 5 years are wasted. Another index, newborn mortality, means the death in first 28 days after birth. Here I have given the 10 worst country and then on the right side 10 best countries. India stands at 12th. Worst country globally is Pakistan. 45.6 or 45 to 46 children die out of 1,000 live birth within 28 days of the life. Then Central African Republics, 42 to 43 children die out of 1,000 within 28 days of the birth. Afghanistan, 40, Somalia, all these countries after 10th. India stand at 12th number. That is the 25 to 26 children die out of 1,000 child live birth within 28 days of the life. The best country is Japan. Not even one child die out of 1,000. Iceland, 1. Singapore, Finland, Estonia, Slovenia, Cyprus, Belarus, Republic of Korea, Norway, Luxembourg. These are the best countries. So we can say that newborn mortality, death in first 28 days of life out of 1,000, India stand at 12th number in the world with rate of that 25 to 26 children die out of 1,000 within 28 days of the birth. It is an indicator of nutritional security globally. Now, friends, coming to most important thing. Our ministry, different ministry, different programs are to address the food and nutritional security. And these are the ongoing schemes. I have worked very hard to collect all these schemes. Even I was not knowing. So forget about that. A normal rural people might be knowing. Ongoing scheme of Government of India to address the malnutrition and hidden hunger. Huge scheme, many schemes by different ministry. I will name someone. Integrated Child Development Scheme, Janani Suraksha Yojana, Indira Gandhi Matriya Sahyog Yojana, Reproductive Child Health RCH1 and RCH2, National Rural Health Mission, Rajiv Gandhi National Crèche Scheme, Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, Midday Meal, Kishori Shakti Yojana, Women Welfare and Support Program, Old and Infirm Person Anpurna, Total Sanitation Campaign, National Rural Drinking Water Program, Scheme for Empowerment of Adolescent Girls, and TPDS, Public Distribution System, and many more. When I was director of a National Dairy Research Institute, I was interested to establish a crèche in the institute to help our employee, those who are having a small child. My interest was that they should be free, they should come with their children, and the children should be in the crèche, and they should do the job. After completing the job, they can take their child and go home. I was afraid that, means from where money will come, if I allot some land, if I allot some, room for this and this, some problem. I was not knowing that there is already program of Government of India, Rajiv Gandhi National Crèche Scheme. And if you see the target, Integrated Child Development Scheme, Janni Suraksha Yojana, Indira Gandhi Matri, the target of all this scheme, mostly, I will not say all, mostly the target group is pregnant and lactating mothers. Sorry, it is not month, it is mothers, pregnant and lactating mothers, children 0 to 3 years and 3 to 6 years, school going children, that is the 6 to 14 years, adolescent girls, adults, and community. The target group means we are targeting all community, and the major service from schemes, it includes all. If we take care of all these services, I think we will be secured for food, we will be secured for the nutrition. The objective of these schemes are to provide supplementary nutrition, counseling and education on diet and nutrition, breastfeeding. We should console that breastfeeding is the best, and spacing between child, weekly iron and folic acid supplementation, immunization, promoting institutional child delivery, newborn care and postnatal care, growth monitoring, that is the job of this scheme, that we will monitor the growth of the children, health education of the mother for child care, referral and follow-up of undernourished and severe malnourished and sick children. This is our job. We should follow up that if someone is malnourished, undernourished, we should follow up. Deworming, as has been said, that albendazole example, something was given. Deworming, cashless treatment of first month of the child, care of the children of working women, working mothers. This is in our scheme, and I was struggling to establish a crèche. Non-formal preschool education, promotion of use of iodized salt. As I said, when we say that promotion of, I don't see that when we promote the use of Tata salt or iodized salt, we would have ever taught that what is the best way to consume the salt. We have never taught. Midday meal and food subsidies. So all these programs are existing. Question is to implement in a faithful manner, in a truthful manner, so that consumers, poor people can get the advantage of this. Despite all glorious data on food production, despite all effort of Government of India ministry giving this much programs from different ministries targeting the group, we are suffering from food and nutritional security. Only reason is the lack of knowledge, lack of awareness. Friend, along with the science, I always say that along with science, we have to take this issue to the consumer's level, to the community level, so that they can be taught in the best way. We had started, means nutrition sensitive agriculture. Nutrition sensitive agriculture means we adopted an area, a village, and we assessed that what are the deficiency they are suffering. Maybe with iron, maybe with potassium, maybe with cobalt, like this one. Then we identify the plants which are having excess minerals in which they are having deficiency. For example, if some area is having iron deficiency, then promote potassium, it is the banana. For identification of deficiency on one hand, identification of the plant, crop, grains, fruit, which are rich source of these minerals, and then help them to incorporate those plants, those food in their food production system. That is called as nutrition sensitive agriculture, that we have to include somewhere. We all know, friends, that in 2013, National Food Security Act was implemented, and this Food Security Act provide legal entitlement to receive 5 kg food grains every month at subsidized rate. to 75% of the rural and 50% of the urban population. It has also provision for providing nutritional support to pregnant and lactating mothers and children to the age group of 6 months to 14 years. Means we should appreciate our food production system, food delivery system, our PDS system, that during this pandemic of Corona, COVID-19, I said that no one had died because of the starvation. Despite all problem, maybe 1 or 2 cases reported, but that is not real problem of the, it is not, may not be because of the starvation, but let's say that no one suffered because of starvation, no one died because of the starvation. Let us appreciate our scientists, food production system, our government, our supply system, our distribution system. Adequate nutrition during pregnancy and early childhood is essential to ensure the growth, health, and development of the children to their full potential. So this is the Food Security Act, which is the glory of the food production system in 1960s. Remember when Indira Gandhi was there in 1960, we imported only 10 million ton of the food grain from US. At that time, whole world was looking India as a country from ship to mouth. Means if food will come from ship, then it will go to the mouth. And now from that import, we are committed legally to provide 60 million ton of homegrown food to meet this requirement, Food Security Bill of Government of India, which was passed in Parliament in 2013. Not only food requirement, but with the nutrition. The job of this Food Security 2013 Act is to provide adequate nutrition to pregnant mothers and children to ensure that their growth, their health, their development is to the full potential. That is the beauty of this Food Security Bill. Milk, means milk is one issue which was never given a priority for the nutritional security. But now government has recognized that dairy sector can be a tool not only for livelihood security, not only for food security, but also for nutritional security. Milk is the source of calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, iodine, selenium, all water-soluble vitamin, all fat-soluble vitamin. Calcium and vitamin, means calcium is responsible for absorption, or calcium is absorbed only when vitamin D and phosphorus is present in the exact ratio. 5-6 years back, you must have seen an advertisement on the television that a doctor comes and says to the mother that add this product, I will not name the product, that add this product in the milk, otherwise calcium will go waste. Your child will not get the calcium present in the milk. How long you are not adding this product in the milk? I wrote a very strong letter with all scientific proof, with all data, that it is wrong, and I compel them to withdraw that advertisement from the television. Because calcium is having, because milk is having calcium, phosphorus, vitamin D exactly in the same ratio, which will lead to 100% absorption of the calcium. Many research reports you will find that if a child is not given calcium during its growing age, its development is not proper. When we were students, we were taught that the calcium is good for bone, teeth, and cartilage and heart tissues. But friends, now science has acknowledged that calcium is responsible for maintaining the tonicity of the blood vessels. So it means it is responsible for hypertension. It is acting as anticarcinogenic. So calcium is most important source of in milk, and the 100% absorption, because calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin D is present exactly in the same ratio. Milk is having carotenoids, which improves the vision, which is also acting an antioxidant. Not only that, milk is only food which is having a short chain fatty acid, butyric acid, that is called as butyric acid, which helps in the multiplication of the neuron in brain. And we know that nerve cell is slowest multiplying cell. So if we are giving the milk, then brain development will take. It also acts as an anti-tumor. Milk is having lactose, which is a prebiotic. It also helps in the development of the brain. Prebiotic, friends, now time has come that it is said that now in 21st century, the second half of this 21st century will be the era of probiotic. Probiotic means healthy bacteria. We all know that our gut is having, our GIT is having 70 to 100 trillion microorganisms. Out of this 70 to 100 trillion microbes, some are healthy, some are pathogenic. There is a balance. If I'm healthy, means it is a balance. If this balance disturbed, one falls sick. Or if one falls sick, this balance is disturbed. Pathogenic bacteria will be increased and healthy bacteria will be reduced. Healthy bacteria is probiotic. Milk is having lactose, and this lactose is food for probiotic. It is a prebiotic. So if you are taking milk, probiotic will multiply, healthy bacteria will multiply in your gut, and your all immunity and all good healthy attributes will be seen. And that's why we did a good research in NDRI that fermented dairy products, that is the curd, yogurt or lassi, is the best food matrix for probiotic. Because during fermentation, there are several genes which are activated, which are not activated if it is not fermented in the probiotic bacteria. So all good point of the milk. Lactose is good for development of the brain. It is a prebiotic. Milk and whey protein, minor component, bioactive peptides for therapeutic value. You must have seen that every day, lot of bioactive peptides are being isolated from the milk, which are having therapeutic effects. The strongest analgesic, 67-fold more than opioid, have been isolated from the milk. After 2 decades, 3 decades, there will be tough competition between pharma industry and food industry for milk. We have to exploit the full therapeutic and nutritional potential of not only bovine milk, that is cattle and buffalo, but also of non-bovine milk, that is the sheep, goat, camel, yak, mithun, all donkey, all these things. And we all know that during the treatment of tuberculosis, camel milk is found very effective because camel milk is having bioactive peptides which enhance the penetration of antibiotics intracellularly where Mycobacterium tuberculei are. We know that during outbreak of dengue, goat milk has been found very successful because it has a biomolecules which does not allow the adhesion or adsorption or attachment of the microbes on the host cell membrane. So all good point of therapeutics and nutrition of bovine and non-bovine milk are to be exploited, are to be explored in a full terms. After seeing all these data, glorious data, food production system, the information on the nutritional security, the problem which we are facing in nutritional security, if I want to summarize, then I can say, friends, a mission mode action is required to address the malnutrition in this country, to bring the zero hunger target. And to bring this zero hunger and malnutrition, livestock, fishery, and horticulture will play the major role. Our crop will bring the food security, but the nutritional security will come from livestock, fishery, and horticulture sectors. Community participation, ownership by society and consumers would play most important role to fight against malnutrition. So it is not only science, it is not only production. If we produce 180 million ton or 188 million ton of the milk, it is not the sufficient. Community participation, means we want that in community, each and everyone should understand the importance of nutrition in their food. They should talk, they should discuss in panchayat, at sarpanch platform, at everywhere they should talk, because without involvement of community and consumers, we will not achieve this target. The health food require a substantial dietary shift. That is required. Double the consumption of fruits and vegetables. This is said that double the consumption of fruits and vegetables, nuts and legumes, and animal milk, egg, fish, and reduce the consumption of red meat, sugar more than 50%. This message we should take, that if we really want to nutritional security, then we should follow this. Last slide, friends. Take home message. Let us read this thing word by word. The 1000 day from the start of the mother's pregnancy to her child till second year of the age is highly crucial for the nutrition security of the children. In very simple terms, I will say that child must be provided during his or her initial 1000 days. And this 1000 days is from the inception of the pregnancy. So 9 months in mother uterus and approximately 2 months and 2 years and 3 months after birth. So 9 months in mother uterus, 2 years, 3 months after birth, that is the 1000th year. 1000th year is the most important period of a child. If mother is not provided good nutrition during pregnancy and child is not provided good nutrition during initial 2 to 2.5 years, the child will remain epigenetically predisposed for a disease that we call as syndrome X disease. And this disease includes diabetes, hypertension, and dyslipidemia. Friends, let this message, I want that everyone who is participating in this seminar, they should talk at least to 10 people about this. And the message is that the initial 1000 days is most important for any child nutrition. Child must be provided good nutrition during initial 1000 days. That includes 9 months good nutrition to mother during pregnancy and 2.5 years after birth to the child. If child is not provided good nutrition, after that, after 1000 days you provide anything, it will not work. If it is not provided during initial 1000 days. You know, means when I was child in a village, in a small village in Uttar Pradesh, it was said in my village, and my mother used to say that the best work is, जो पुण्य का काम है, सबसे पुण्य का काम ये है कि किसी भी pregnant mother को भर पेट खाना खिलाना. At that time, we could not understand that what it means. Why to pregnant mothers? You know, means there are many poor people, there are many beggars. Why not to feed them? She says that the most pious work is to feed good feed to a pregnant mother. But now, when we came to the science age, I understand the importance that 1000 days is most important. Let us take a oath that we will talk to at least 10 people, and we will give oath to those 10 people that they will talk another 10 people, so that this message should go, and in future our country is secure not only in terms of food but also in terms of the nutrition. That is the important, that is the need, friends. Otherwise there will be no use of producing 291 million ton of the food grains, more than 300 million ton of the horticultural produce, 200 million ton of the milk and meat and eggs, 100 billion eggs. There will be of no use how long we are not keeping our country healthy. And to keep our country healthy, we have to target initial 1000 days. Thank you very much for your patience sharing.